Hello, boys and girls. It's time for hats and stuff. Hats, stuff, hats and stuff. Stuff and stuff and stuff and stuff and hats. We're gonna talk about some hats and stuff. Hats and stuff. Hey, hi, hey, what's going on? My name is Greg. Woohoo! What'd you do? Hey, I'm faking you out. Woo! Hey, my name is Greg. I'm gonna talk about hats. Basically, I like hats. I love hats. And I will talk about hats. I will wear hats. I will tell people how to wear hats. I will talk about how should people wear hats, how hats are made, how all the hats, like everything to do with a hat, like hats. H-A-T-S, hats, woo! Okay, anyway, so let's talk about hats, right? So this is a hat. Oh my God, it's a hat? It's totally a hat. When you talk about hats, right, let's talk about let's talk about the anatomy of hats, right? So I won't use this one. I'll use this one here. So anatomy of a hat, right? This is a fedora. Now the reason I want to talk about this hat is because it's got something that this hat doesn't. So this hat, right? So when you're talking about the beginnings of a hat, so in this hat, right? So we got this hat. Yeah. This is the crown. It's all about the crown. My life got turned upside down. Next thing you know, Princeville, whatever. Anyway, don't know what that has to do with the crown. So this is the crown. And then this is the brim. Is the brim. Inside the bottom of the brim. Inside the brim, outside of the brim. That's the brim in the hat. Crown. So a hat does not necessarily have to have a crown, but it always has to have, not necessarily have to have a brim, but it always has to have a crown, right? Always got to have a crown. If it doesn't have a crown, then it's essentially like a visor, because it would just be like a piece of material outside the head, maybe a bandana. I don't know, but it's not a hat. So you don't have to have the brim, but you got to have the crown. Now, the reason that I talk about the fedora, and this is the fedora, we'll talk about fedoras and other stuff later, fedoras versus trilbies. But the reason that this is a fedora, the reason that I want to talk about this is this has a pinch in it. But it's essentially like what you think it would be, like, boop, I pinched it, boop, boop. That's going to do anything. So, you pinch it, right? So it's a pinched. This is not pinched, it's round. Woohoo, it's all round. This is pinched. Now, this is a different thing. This is an indentation in the crown. But this is the pinch, right? So you can have this pinch, which is just literally a pinch. Like I just pinched it. You can also have a Homburgs, which has what I call a butt pinch. So the butt pinch would be like a pinch down the center, so it's split in two halves. It kind of looks like butt cheeks. And then, so that's the crown. Now, this is an indented part of it. This is still a part of the crown. This is just kind of pushed in. It's indented, but it's still part of the crown. It's not anything different than the rest of the crown. Now, when you get to the brim, we got this brim, right? Well, you got the outside of the hat, right? The outside of the hat. And so, the hat band, that's what I'm looking for. The hat band. Now, I want to explain this in a second. But the hat band, right? So this is the hat band. And this is where, a feather in the hat, this hat band actually happens to have a feather in it. One of the ways to tell which way to wear a hat is there is up here, up at the top, there is a little bow, but we'll get to that in a minute. The feather or the bow is always on the left on a men's hat. Always on the left. Now, this bow is pre-made, and it's printed in there, right? It's all stitched in, and so it's nice looking bow, and it actually looks like a bow. And if there's a feather in a hat, then it always goes on the left, and it usually goes somewhere in the bow, like this one does. See, it's in the bow. See, look, it's sitting in the bow. That's how the feather works. So bow, feather, always left-hand side of the hat. So if you can't find what you're looking for, inside of the hat. So that's the brim, right? So we got the hat band, and the hat band can be different color from the rest of the outer hat band can be a different color than the rest of the hat. Now the cool thing about this is I only have one of these hats that has this. This little awesome thing is a string with a button on it. right? So this string with a button, you stick it, you would put it into around one of your buttons on your shirt, and that would keep it from flying away well, it would fly away, but it would keep it from like getting away from you because they would be attached to your hat in the cause of like a lot of wind. I had never seen this before. It's super cool. And some shirts back in the day would actually have like a little spot for you to put the little button in there. Cause I mean, it's literally a button, right? It's literally a button that goes in a buttonhole. So that's a fedora. Now, on the inside of the hat, you got a couple of things. This one is a good, so your older hats, that's not really a thing anymore, but the older hats, the companies would put, it might be plastic in here, but the companies would put like the name of the company. So the outside would be the person who manufactured it, and the inside would be the company that you bought it from. Now this is Portofino hats, and this is a company that's based out of Miami, and they make their own hats. It's really cool. And they also, that's how you know you got a cool hat too, is when, I don't know if you can see this. You see that? Yeah, see that. When they have their name printed in the side. So that's the inner hat band. This one actually has, shows you the size, 7 and 5/8. But here is the bow I was telling you about. All gentlemen's hats, until it like falls off, have a bow. And that bow is the back of the hat. That is the back of the hat. The bow, back of the hat. Bow, back. Back bow. Yeah! So, remember that. And then this is the inner crown. Right? And then this is the inner hat band. Now, if you ever get a hat wet, I'll talk about this later, but if you ever get a hat wet and you need to dry it, like you got sweaty or watery, take and pull the inner hat band out and let it, so it will be able to dry on its own, so it won't cause stains inside, or basically when you get a hat wet, it'll start to shrink and then it won't fit on you anymore, if that makes sense. Now, let's talk about a different kind of hat. That was a fedora. This is a bowler. And this is made of straw. This is felt, and this is straw. This is a straw boater. Now, this is one of my favorite hats. Boaters don't tend to be red. Boaters tend to be like a gray or a white. I love this hat, and it's a great hat. And I even love the hat band. But it's got a bow on the left, and it's got a flat crown. So this is a rounded crown. This is a flat crown because it's flat. Woo, flat. And it's made out of straw. Felt is felt, and we'll talk about what felt actually is at some point. Felt can come from natural like fibers like cotton, or it can come from animal felt. But it's a woven material, and well, it's a fur based, a fur like well, this is straw. I mean, this is literally like straw that you would see like made out of grass, right? And then this is made out of either wool, so an animal product of some sort. Cotton, I think they can make them out of cotton. But so this is made out of straw, and it's called straw, but it can be made out of anything, any kind of grass-like material. I have banana, hats made out of banana leaves. I have, this is actual straight-up straw. You could have things made out of different plant fibers, and it's all interwoven. And the reason this is a summer hat, because it breathes, and this is a winter hat. Now, that does not mean because this is a summer hat that you can get it wet. Because getting it wet, you shouldn't get any hat wet because it screws it up. This hat is just easier. It breathes more, and it's in the summer, people would wear straw, and in the winter, you'd wear wool. And you'd always wear a hat. Gentlemen always wear a hat. Woo-woo! Gentlemen always wear a hat, unless you're indoors, so technically I'm, like, breaking the law. But you'd always wear a hat indoors. If you were not wearing a hat, then that was, I'm sorry. Yeah, you were considered uncouth. Like, everybody wore a hat. Like, we'll talk about that more later in the other stuff. So that was basically the hat anatomy. Anyway, that's hats. So let's do a recap. The crown. Sorry, I just had a cat walk by me. The brim. Woo! The outer hat band. The inner hat band. A pinch, if it were pinched. And then, that's essentially it. And then the inner. And see, this is I'm totally putting that upside down. Right, there we go. This is a Jackson hat. We'll talk about that later because I really like these guys. It says Jackson. Woohoo, it says Jackson. I'm going to get all this down at some point and figure out how it is. So this is stuff and things and hats and stuff. And And by the way, this hat is actually the only hat, because I have a really big head. This is the only hat that is not correctly sized. This is not the correct way to wear a hat. But being that I have a big head, I found a hat that was big enough for me to wear and be all cute and like hide my ears under it and stuff. But I'll show you the proper way to wear a hat. Woo, we're waxing. The proper way to wear a hat next time. Hello, boys and girls. It's time for hats and stuff. Hats, stuff, hats and stuff. Stuff and stuff and stuff and stuff and hats. We're gonna talk about some hats and stuff. Hats and stuff.